Hi everybody, my name is Nick Justition. I teach virtual production at Drexel University. In this video, we're continuing our series on retargeting motion capture data. And in this case, we're going to be setting up a custom IK retargeting rig that is specific to a brand new character that doesn't already have a rig in place. In the past videos, I've taken a look at setting up an IK rig for a data source, in which case the only thing that really mattered was the IK chains themselves, the joint chains. In this case, we're really looking at the IK rig as a target source. So for this video, I'm using the Paragon Muriel character. So she's a free asset available from the marketplace. You can just search for her name if you'd like to follow along and add her to a project of your own. And we're going to be creating the IK rig itself for her to receive motion capture data. Again, in the past, we've covered IK rig, but really only from the aspect of it being a source of mocap data. And this time we need to create a IK rig so that we can retarget data. And that's a little bit more involved than just the joint chains. We also want to take care of properly setting up the IK aspects of that rig. So in order to do that, we're going to take a look at one of the best templates around, and that's the one for the mannequin. So I've already got the mannequin installed into this characters folder. Just as a quick review, if you don't have the mannequin characters in your project, you can go to the content browser's add button, click on that, choose add feature or content pack, and then choose third person and add that to your project. When you click on that add to project, you'll get both the third person folder, which is the level that's in the background here of this, but more importantly, you'll get this characters folder that contains the mannequins, and that's what we're interested in. Because here in the character folder, we have our mannequins folder, and we'll go in there, and here we have a rigs folder. So if we double click on that, we'll find the IK Mannequin IK Rig. So this is a really great demonstration of how to set up the IK rig, and let's take that apart a little bit. So double clicking here, we'll open up the IK Mannequin rig here, and what we see is rather than just joint chains, and of course there's lots of them here, we already know how to set these up, but instead let's take a look at our hierarchy here, and you'll notice that not only do we have a full body IK solver here, but there are IK goals, and there are also bone settings here. And these are the things that we want to model off of when we're setting up a new IK rig for our custom character. So I'm going to keep Mannequin open here and instead open up a new IK rig for Muriel. So I'll go to content and work on my Paragon Muriel, characters, heroes, Muriel, meshes. Okay, and so I've got this IK rig already in place, so let's start with a fresh one. So I'll right click and go to, actually what I could do is right click on the skeletal mesh for Muriel and choose create and go to IK rig, and with that I've got a brand new IK rig here. Selecting that, I can tap, let me get this out of the way, click here and tap F2 to rename, and I'll just call this Muriel demo. And so that's ready, and I can double click on that to open that up, and here she is added to our IK rigging window. So I've got two open here. I've got the mannequin and I've got Muriel. So I think what I'm going to do just for the purposes of this demo is float these windows. So I'll have Muriel over here taking up one part of my screen so I can see what I'm working on, and then I'll have mannequin here in the other part of my screen so that we can refer to the mannequin settings as we go. So there we go. We got a little bit of overlap between them, and we can go back and forth. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is go ahead and define the joint chains for Muriel. I'm going to go to character and bones and add the all hierarchy so we can see those bones. We'll start with pelvis and right click and give that a set retarget root. There is a root bone, so I'm going to go ahead and create a chain for that. So right click and new retarget chain, and we should get a little pop-up right here for that, and it says that's the root. Yes, that's what we want. And with that, we've got our first chain. We already have our retarget root here, so we'll select all of these spine joints here. Not needing that chest plate, so I think we just need, looks like she really only has a few spine joints. Wait a minute, what do we have here? 1, 2, 3. All right, right click, new retarget chain, spine, excellent. And now we want to get her clavicle for the left and right, so right click, set retarget chain, and this is actually left clavicle, not left arm. And we'll add that chain, and since we have that in there, let's see if we can right click in here in some empty space and mirror that chain, right clavicle, yep. So now we've got our left and right clavicles. Let's make sure we have our neck taken care of before we forget it. So that'll be all the way up to the head joint. So neck to head, and taking a look at that, right, because we went to the base of the head. It's not the top, it's just the base. So we've got that, right click, new retargeting chain. It's not going to be called neck, we want it to be called head. Add the chain. You know, with Mannequin open here, we can always see what these chains are named based on the Mannequin setup. So if I were to search for head, I can see that, you know, that's the neck one to the head. So again, we're just following this joint chain model setup for the Mannequin, and we're just repeating that here for Muriel. All right, so we've got her clavicles. Let's make sure we take care of her arms. So we have to be a little careful because she's got these wings. And so here's her upper arm, and that is going to include the upper arm, the lower arm, and the hand. So there we go. I think those are all the joints we need for that chain. So new retarget chain. This is the right arm. That's correct. And let's right click next to that and choose mirror chain. Left arm, correct. And we'll make sure we get her legs. And so there's the thigh, the calf, the foot. And we also want to go all the way down to the ball of the foot. Right, so there we go. Right click, new retarget chain. Right leg, that's correct. And right click and mirror the chain. Okay, left leg is good. So we've got all the main chains here. I could include the fingers, but I don't want you to have to deal with watching paint dry, so I'm going to accelerate all of this recording here and get all of these fingers taken care of. So here we go. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. And just a quick review of what I did there is my own approach usually to knock out these fingers really quickly is to just select the base joint of the 5 fingers, 4 fingers and the thumb on one of the hands and create chains for all of those. And of course those chains only have a single joint. So then I go through and make sure that I've made sure that each of those chains ends in the final joint inside the finger. So we don't go all the way to the tip of the finger. I'm tapping F here to fit. But in this case, the last joint in the chain is actually a knuckle. So we want to go to the last knuckle joint, and we ignore any joint that might be at the very tip of the fingers. So after I had all 5 digits taken care of on this right hand, I just selected all of the chains, right-clicked and chose mirror, and that set up the chains for the left hand as well. So we've got all the chains set up, and now what we want to do is start working on our IK setup. So I'm going to select all the same joints that are used as IK goals for the Mannequin, and that is each of the hands and each of the balls of the feet. So I'll select each ball of foot joint as well as each hand. So I think that might be this. Nope, that's not it. This one. There we go. That was, oh, that's the IK. We do not want that one yet. Let's just go with hand left here and hand right here. So I've got 4 joints selected, each of the ball of the foot joints and each of the hand joints. And what I'm going to do is add a new IK goal with all of those selected. And by doing that, the first dialog box I get is asking me to add a solver. I do want a full body solver. I will add that. And then it's going to recognize that each one of these joints is at the end of an existing chain. So it's asking, should I add that goal to each of those chains? And well, yes, I would like you to do that. So I'm just going to have to do that once for each of those joints. And now I've got all 4 goals set, and everything's nice with that, except for our solver here is kicking out a little bit of an error. It's saying it's missing a root bone. And so that's why if I were to select one of these goals and move it, nothing's happening. That's because while we've set the retargeting route for the chains, we have not defined the retargeting route for the IK body solver here. So I'm going to select the retarget route, which is the pelvis joint here, and right click and add the set root bone for the selected solver. So again, I have my full body solver selected, I've got my pelvis selected, right click, set root bone on the selected solver. And with that, our full body IK will now work. So I can select a joint and I can move it, and ooh, terrible things are happening. Okay, we haven't finished setting up our bone settings. That's okay. But you can see that at least the solver is operating. So this stuff, we need to fix all that. So let's go to reset. And to help with this, I'm going to reduce the number of joints that we're actually looking at here. We're going to this little cog button and selecting show hide unaffected bones. There we go. So everything that isn't affected by our solver, our setup here, is now gone. So this is just showing us our IK affected joints. You can see all the fingers are gone and everything else that we haven't put into our IK are gone. So now we can work on setting up our various joint settings. And we're just going to copy our homework from the mannequin. So if we look at the pelvis for the mannequin and look at its settings, here are the details for that. What we see is the stiffness is set to 1 and everything else is set to 0. So let's copy those settings. We'll just go to pelvis and we'll right click and say add settings to this bone. Selecting that, we'll take a look at the details, and rotation stiffness is 0. So since there's no stiffness to that, when we move an IK handle, that pelvis bone is moving like crazy. If we go to this pelvis bone and set its stiffness to 1, already we'll see an improvement in how our IK is operating, because now that pelvis doesn't rotate. Now, there are other things that we need to address here. We kind of got lucky that the knee bent automatically for us, but we want to ensure that that's going to work. So returning to our mannequin over here, if we take a look at the lower leg settings, we can take a look at those, and we don't have any stiffness to set, but notice that the preferred angle here has a 90 degrees in Z. So what does this mean? Well, let's take a look at the actual joint system inside the mannequin. So I'm going to go to clicking nowhere. I get my preview skeleton, and I can double click on that to get my preview skeletal mesh. And if I select a bone here, can't really use my WDZ or WER buttons to see any gizmos controls. So I'm going to switch to the skeleton mode here. And now if I select a joint like this lower leg, you can see that I get my rotation gizmo. If I hit E, and we've got, RGB corresponds to the axes of the joint itself, because I'm in object mode here. We want to make sure you're not in global mode here. Clicking this, going to object mode. Red corresponds to the X-axis rotation. Green corresponds to the Y, and blue corresponds to Z. So Z, if I'm moving this way, is negative, and Z moving this way is positive. And so anytime we want to move the IK of the foot, we want this lower leg to favor moving in a positive Z rotation direction. And that's where we're getting that number of positive 90. So let's go back to our setup here and mimic that, right? So we're going to take the calf on the right, and we're going to right click, and we're going to add settings to the selected bone. And in those settings, we're just going to change our preferred angle. Oh, wait a minute. Do we really know that we want to change the Z axis? We should inspect our skeleton for Muriel. So again, I'm clicking into nothing. I'm double clicking on Muriel. We've got her skeletal mesh here, and I'll click on her skeleton, and then I'll click on her lower leg. And sure enough, we do indeed have the same axes rotation. We are in object mode, so the X, Y, and Z that we're seeing do match. So we would want to do the same positive 90 for Z. So always check that, because not every skeleton is set up the same way. Not every skeleton has the same joint orientations. In some cases, you might run into something where rotating in this direction for some reason is negative Z. So let's always double check that. Okay, so back to our setup. We'll go ahead and look at our calf and set that to a positive 90. And unfortunately, I don't think we have a mirror setting here, right? There's nothing here to mirror this, so I also don't think I can copy this, Control C, and put it on the calf left, Control V. Yeah, that doesn't work either. So for the calf left, we just need to create the same thing. There's a right click, add settings to the goal, or to the bone rather, and set this to 90. Okay, so now that's should be good for us. Let's take a look at Mannequin, and it doesn't look like there's, oh, yep, there is for the thigh. Ah, sure enough, a negative 90. So again, looking at Mannequin skeleton, if we select this leg right here, and that makes sense because with this leg, E, let's go back to this skeleton here, selecting the leg, there we go, E, we're going to want this to rotate this way and do a negative 90. So again, while we're here, we'll go ahead and check on Muriel skeleton, click on her upper leg, and sure enough, we also see that same 90. So undo and go over to Muriel skeleton and make sure we add that negative 90 as a bone setting for each of her thighs. So minus 90, and same thing for here, adding a settings for bone, selecting those settings and adding a minus 90. Okay, so at this point her legs should be set up, and now they will reliably bend the way that we want to. Again, we're just copying our homework from Mannequin over here. So let's take a look at our remaining joint chains. One of the things that we do see, I'm going to, I'll again just change the hide unaffected so we only see the joints that are of interest here. We took care of the legs. We did the pelvis, but notice the spine has a bunch of settings as well. So I can click on here and we see that the rotation stiffness for this first spine joint is 0.896. I don't necessarily know how the artist landed on that number, but I'm going to round that up to 0.9. So for Muriel, we'll go to spine 1 and we'll add settings and we'll go for a stiffness of 0.9. Maybe somebody from Epic can could go ahead and post in the comments if there's a reason that I should be not rounding that up. Looking at the settings for spine 2, we have 0.936, so a little bit more, and that seems to be carrying through for all the spine joints. So let's go ahead and do that for our remaining spine joints here. And since I rounded up to 0.9 before, I'm going to go ahead and just round these settings for these two joints to 0.95. So a little stiffer, not 100% stiff, but mostly stiff, 0.95. Okay, so that takes care of that. So what does Manny have on the clavicle? Well, we've got stiffness of 1 and everything else is 0. So we'll add that to these two clavicles, 1 clavicle, 2 clavicles, right click, add settings, and here we'll make this stiffness 1, and here we'll make this stiffness 1. And moving on, we took care of all the spines, so let's just check. Looks like we only have settings on the lower arm, not the upper arm. So we'll take a look at that. And of course we have zeros, but then we have that positive 90. So let's look at Muriel's skeleton and select her arm. And we see that it is the z-axis and it is a positive number. So we'll undo that and go here and do the same for Muriel. So we'll do the lower arm and the lower arm, right click, new settings for those. And again, we'll just do positive 90. And so now we have our IK all set up for Muriel to receive targeting. And if we want to, we can test those. We can just move this, grab this little goal here, and move that around, move that up, and sure enough, her elbow moves backwards. And selecting this, everything is working out well. So we'll reset, we'll save, and that's how we set up that IK targeting rig. In the next video, we'll take a look at using this rig to retarget data and finessing the settings of the IK targeting so that we get the results that we like. Until next time, have fun.